Just give a little Jai Baladev if we could just. It's definitely working better this time, I think. There we go. And we've made it. Cool. So once again, now we're here. And Lileshwari, thank you for being my reminder to record everything. Yeah, so I actually don't have a formal assistant unless you count 10-year-old Nandi, but Lileshwari has kind of like between Lila Mandri and Lileshwari, they step up and remind me of the things just about every day. It's like one or both of them reminds me to be mindful or like grateful or happy or just like calm and Krishna conscious. And I appreciate the both of them because they both kind of swooped in, also with the mindset of I get it. Whenever you have a moment, just take a look at so and so. And I really, that's the kind of mentality that I really need because I'm usually doing 12 things at once, and I've been trying to streamline that. Just calm that down. Focus on maybe just one or two things at once, not all 12. But they've been a great source of help in my life. If there was ever a team, I feel like Krishna already kind of like picked it. It's like, here you go. I've done the things already in true Krishna fashion. You're like, Krishna really does this. The minute you start to say, Krishna, I think I need more of blank in my life, Krishna really decides to start putting those people and things and experiences in place to help us get more of what we need. Sometimes that feels really uncomfortable. But in the long run, it always turns out to be one of the best things that we'll ever experience. And that's where I feel like the trust really comes in, trusting our best friend that they have our best interests at heart. Because in no way could I have ever tried to like build and set up a whole plan for all of this to occur and for all of us to be here together. But I didn't have to. What I did have to do was ask my best friend back there and say, hey, Govinda, I think this is where we're heading. I think this is what you want. Let me know if this is possible. Luckily, the best friend said yes. And now we find all of ourselves here together. So I'm really, really, really grateful and glad and happy to be with all of you. I was just talking to our people in the patron Zoom room, and I was telling them that Lord Vishnu is actually the presiding deity of Mercury, and Mercury is, if any of us follow any kind of astrology, or even if we don't, I feel like it's kind of out there now. It's like one of those things that you can't escape. Somebody's going to be talking about Mercury in retrograde and how it's messing up their insert whatever it's messing up. But one of the best ways to sidestep all of that is to actually recite a Vishnu mantra, to pray to Lord Vishnu. And before we begin, usually any of these spiritual talks or spiritual discourses or anything, there's one particular Vishnu mantra that we usually happen to chant. And if you go to any Hare Krishna temple or center, before they begin speaking, they invoke this mantra. Okay, like why? Right? We hear about Vasudeva in this mantra, and Lord Vasudeva is dwelling within the heart. Vasudeva is also a state of consciousness. Vasudeva is also a place. It's a plane of existence where one can offer their choicest service to the Supreme Lord Vasudeva. Vasudeva is known as the indwelling personality of Godhead, the one who rules over the heart and the mind and guides the senses, which I always loved. Because sometimes it really does feel like, okay, everything's out of control here and out of whack. Can you help me? So praying to Lord Vasudeva easily helps us cross over all of that. I had a friend, and they were saying that they were running a marathon, and it was quite a long marathon, like 20, 30, 40-mile long marathon. And it was going to take a really long time. And at one point, and they had trained for this for so long, but at one point, they really just felt like, I can't do this. I can't do this anymore, which any of us feel like that about life. Like you get halfway and you're like, I don't think I signed up for this anymore. And what they said was at that point, they said, and they just were kind of new to kirtan, right? They weren't really practicing bhakti, not really into it at all. And I said, but I had heard this one chant and I couldn't get it out of my head. And so I just started singing it. And it was Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. And that was the thing that helped them finish this entire marathon. So we can never underestimate the power of these mantras, the power of these sacred syllables coming together, forming this invocation, which brings the divine presence into our daily lives, into every single moment. So this is the power of this one mantra. And we usually, Srila Prabhupada had a very, very good practice of speaking this mantra before reciting any of these pastimes. And in fact, the entire Srimad Bhagavatam, which this Krishna book is just one small section from a bigger Bhagavat Purana, Srimad Bhagavatam. And that Srimad Bhagavatam begins with the recitation of this Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So not only will it free our minds, soothe our hearts, but it will also magically transport us wherever we'd like to go that day. So before we begin, we'll recite our magical incantation and invocation. I like saying incantation because it makes us feel like Merlin, We all become like really cool mystical sorcerers. So I really like using words that make me feel super important and mystical. So when I use them, don't be alarmed. But we can start. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. And automatically I feel better already. I feel a little bit more gathered and centered and grounded and all of it. So as these next 3 weeks progress, I urge you all, when you begin your day, take a second. Remember Lord Vasudeva. Remember our best friend, who also happens to be the presiding deity of everything and everyone. But most importantly, just the best friend. We don't even need any more than that. So we'll be picking up with the introduction where we left off last time. Srila Prabhupada spoke about a great many things, and we spoke a lot about Srila Prabhupada as a whole, just about the mission of this great person, what they decided to come and do, how they decided to help all of us, and just some of the hurdles and obstacles that he had to overcome. 2 heart attacks, stroke, bodily issues, being chased with a knife by crazy people, accepting the services of any and everyone, meeting people where they were on their spiritual journey, and always seeing that everybody was on a spiritual journey, even if it didn't look like it. This person was able to see that everybody was on a spiritual journey and that what they were looking for was a spiritual solution to any and all problems. So we'll be reading Krishna book, which is the summary study of the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. So what happens is Prabhupada begins writing, right? And he begins trying to translate this Srimad Bhagavatam from Sanskrit and Hindi and Bengali and all of the commentaries like Sanskrit, the ancient language of the gods, and trying to bring it into English for everyone else in the world, which I think is revolutionary in and of itself and just wonderful, because you had to study for a long time to get all of the Sanskrit import of what's been occurring in this Bhagavat Purana. And instead, and so this was kind of kept and held within the temples, within the higher echelons of those in the temples. So the Brahmins were the ones who would be teachers and professors and all of those people they were supposed to give all of this new guidance to everyone else. But it just became a thing where it was kept and held and not really given to everybody else. And Srila Prabhupada decided, why not? Why not? Why not give everyone a chance to experience this? So he begins this wonderful summary and commentary. And there's a vacuum cleaner. Look, hey, I was gonna get a little bit like riled up. Like, how is there? Why? Why would people be vacuuming at the same time that I was having a podcast? But I have to think about what I want more. Okay? Do I just want my own, like the sound of my own voice, or do I also want a clean house? I think I want a clean house. So I'm going to let it happen. I think I'm going to let it happen. Let's go with it. And it's not that loud. So, yeah. Okay, great. It's super faint. Perfect. So, he decided, why not allow everybody to get this knowledge? And this Krishna book is available online for free on a Veda-based website. If somebody could put that Veda-based link just in the chat for me, thank you so much. Just so everybody could be on the same page, whether you have the physical book copy or not. So Srila Prabhupada decided, why should this just be kept for only one section of people? Why not? Why just Brahmins in a temple? Right? Why just India? Why not the whole world? So this is this great gift. But in translating, Srila Prabhupada was quite old, 70s, 80s. And he felt, what if I don't have the time? What if I'm not graced with this time to get through this entire Srimad Bhagavatam, this entire 10th canto? And the 10th canto is all about the pastimes of Sri Krishna. What if I don't have the ability to get through all of these wonderful nectar-filled pastimes that everybody needs? What to do then? And so he made a summary study. And this summary study is called Krishna Book. And thank God that he did. Because those translations only went up to, what's the 13th, 14th chapter? So the pastime of like Agasura. And right after that, where Brahma enters. And I won't give too many spoilers because we're going to get to it. But those translations only happened until those chapters. And then Srila Prabhupada left. So I say thank God that he did. Because if he didn't, we would have been stuck. So what I find is so wonderful about this Krishna book, and why I chose Krishna book instead of anything else and all of these other things, is there's a certain way that you hear Srila Prabhupada's voice in Krishna book. There's a cadence to the way that he writes. And I really feel like we get an understanding, we get to hear and associate with Srila Prabhupada through this writing. Also, it's a really awesome adventure with our best friend, and I need that at all times. I really, really need it. So I feel like, for all of us who would wake up early on the weekends and watch cartoons as kids, now we have a transcendental version. We get to wake up with each other on a Sunday, no matter where you are, no matter what you're doing, and we all get to have the best adventure ever. So, really glad all of you could make it. This Zoom room keeps getting like more and more filled. I'm super excited about that. Please, if you are in the Zoom room, know that you are always welcome and free to tell a friend, bring a friend, and let them experience this get together. But so that we don't, and it's not really a waste of time. These explanations are always vital, but just so that we actually get into it. And we can get to the fun adventures. We need to get this understanding of the introduction. You can all thank my mom. She told me it was important, so they put it in there, so now I have to read it. And this introduction actually is quite long. But, we spoke about time, place, and circumstance. Why would Srila Prabhupada write such a long introduction to such a book? But he's giving a foundation that people did not have. He's speaking to people in the 70s, and they have no knowledge of anything. But he's trying to give that foundation so that no matter when this book is read, anybody can come to it with a full acknowledgement of who and how great our Krishna is. So we were talking about Krishna's appearance. We were talking about lots of incarnations in last episode. And we left off where Srila Prabhupada was saying, when Krishna appeared, Lord Vishnu was also with him. Krishna actually appears to demonstrate his Vrindavan pastimes and to attract the fortunate conditioned souls and invite them back home, back to Godhead. The killing of the demons was simultaneous to his Vrindavan activities and was carried out only by the Vishnu portion of Krishna. Now that sounds really fancy. Like, what does this mean, right? Simplest terms, it just means that it seems as though Krishna comes for a variety of reasons. Annihilate demons, uplift devotees. But really, Srila Prabhupada is saying, what did he really come for? Really, he came to enact these really super sweet pastimes, to have relationships with his friends. That killing the demons was kind of a simultaneous byproduct, not even done by the fullest version of Krishna. So there's a Vishnu expansion. And that Vishnu expansion is the one that kills the demons. But Krishna's main function, the main function of our Krishna, our dearest friend, is to be our dearest friend and to show the ways in which he is our dearest friend. The most main function of Krishna and the thing that he likes to do most is have interactions and relationships with people that he loves. In the Bhagavad Gita, 8th chapter, 20th verse, it is stated that there is another eternal nature, the spiritual sky, which is transcendental to this manifested and non-manifested matter. The manifested world can be seen in the form of many stars and planetary systems, such as the moon, the sun, etc., even Mercury. But beyond this, there is a non-manifested portion, which is not approachable to anyone in this body. And beyond that non-manifested form, beyond that non-manifested matter, there is a spiritual kingdom. That kingdom is described in the Bhagavad Gita as supreme and eternal. It is never annihilated. This material nature is subjected to repeated creation and annihilation. But that part, the spiritual nature, remains as it is eternally. That always gives me lots and lots of hope. Just feeling like this is not all that there is. This constant struggle, this constant push for solving whatever issue, whatever material issue has come up, whether it be from external circumstances, whether it is, right, we hear about all of these threefold miseries. We have lots of terms in this bhakti movement. So we hear about all of these miseries caused by our own minds and bodies, miseries caused by nature and natural disturbances, and miseries caused by others. And it feels like our existence here is just filled with trying to circumvent those miseries, one after another, sometimes all at the same time, right? And it seems like you can never have a good moment without one of those miseries. And our lives are filled with the ways in which we say, okay, well, we'll tolerate. In order to get through the day, I'll tolerate this part and try and redirect and focus on having gratitude for this section. But there's a spiritual nature that is way beyond any and all of those miseries. And that gives me hope, because sometimes I get really tired. It feels like I get so tired of just the constant, like, okay, and here we are struggling for existence again. There we go. So, this constant struggle for existence and this constant struggle for, am I going to be able to circumvent any of these miseries, all of these miseries? Do they ever stop? Yes. There's something more than just this merry-go-round that we're going through. There is a spiritual nature, and that spiritual nature is at all times eternal. And it's filled with variety. So not to think that, once we're out of all the danger and stuff, you kind of feel like, but does it ever get boring? No. Krishna will find unlimited ways to make it interesting and unique, and we will come across those quite shortly. But this imagining, which is not even imagination, this vision, this idea of this supreme place, which goes beyond all of the ways that we try to exert power over one another and oppress one another, all of the things that bring in all of these miseries, we don't have to deal with that there. And that makes my heart a lot happier. Because looking at the ways that we treat one another as living entities sometimes really gets me a little bit depressed. And really makes me feel like, are we capable? Like, can we become capable of better, treating each other better, acting better with one another? We're capable. And so any of us who are listening, I am sure we're all on this journey to get more capable at dealing with each other better, acting with each other better, being better to one another. So let's continue. The supreme abode of the personality of Godhead Krishna is also described in the Brahma Samhita as the abode of Chintamani. That abode of Lord Krishna, known as Goloka Vrindavan, is full of palaces made of touchstone. Touchstone is that, the basis of alchemical processes, right? This philosopher's stone, this sorcerer's stone, which once you touch anything, it can turn it not just into gold, right? See, spiritual science goes above and beyond. It's so extra. So not just like you touch it to something and it turns into gold, but you touch it to something and it turns it precious. The most precious stone you could ever imagine. This is the basis of this Chintamani stone. And all of the palaces, the houses are just made of it. Go figure. They have something that people have been trying to get for millenniums. They have things that people have just written about and thought about, conjectured about, right? Which means if all of their houses are made of it, there must be something more precious there. That is not the most precious thing they have. It's common now. But they have something more rare and precious than this Chintamani stone. I'm not even going to answer what it is. We're just going to keep reading, and then we're just going to allow it to unfold. So, there the trees are called desire trees, which means quite literally anything that you need or can think of, this tree will provide. And the cows are called Surabhi. The Lord is served there by hundreds and thousands of goddesses of fortune. His name is Govinda, the primeval Lord, and he is the cause of all causes. There the Lord plays his flute, his eyes are like lotus petals, and the color of his body is like that of a beautiful cloud. On his head is a peacock feather. He is so attractive that he excels thousands of cupids. Lord Krishna gives only a little hint in the Gita of his personal abode, which is the supermost planet in the spiritual kingdom. But in the Srimad Bhagavatam, Krishna actually appears with all his paraphernalia and demonstrates his activities in Vrindavan, then at Mathura, and then at Dwarka. The subject matter of this book will gradually reveal all these activities. This is kind of the quintessential reason why I love bhakti. I haven't seen anywhere any other spiritual path where you get such an in-depth look into what God looks like, what God sounds like, what God likes to do at any given moment of the day. And our spiritual teachers have written books and volumes about what Krishna is doing according to time periods. Every minute of the day is accounted for. No longer is God somewhere with a white beard and kind of like no facial features, and it's just a bright light and maybe a voice and that calling from inside saying, do this. But now we have a person with personality, and big personality, filled with dramatics. We have adventures, but we have this incredible form with so many features. And the more you dive into it, the more features there are. I feel fortunate every single time I read something like that. And I really, really think like, I don't know where I would be without these kinds of descriptions, because my mind and my heart need it. In order for me to surrender to the depth that we wind up needing to surrender in my life, me personally, I need it. I need that person. I need to know what they look like. I need to know what they sound like. I need to know what they smell like. I need to know all the things in order to somehow force my mind to surrender. So I've always been really grateful and really thankful. And I try and bring my mind back to those different descriptions whenever I'm having a bad day, or whenever I'm feeling a little bit lost or lacking motivation. I try and bring myself back to what is actually going to help me in that day. And most of the time, it's not like vegging out mindlessly in front of some Netflix show, even though I have tried it so that I can say it doesn't work. And it's a constant process of fighting my mind, which says, but it could work this time. And I'm like, but we just tried that for like 4, 5, 12 weeks. We've tried this and it hasn't worked. Let's try something else. Let me remind myself of my best friend, because that seems to work. And my mind continues to fight me. So why? Right? Why? Why is the mind fighting so much? Because the mind is there to say, but we're in charge. I'm in charge. I'm ruling this whole thing. And whenever I say that I'm in charge, I really do. I swear to you, that mischievous face of Krishna's, I feel like it looms in the back of my mind. It's like, yeah, you're in charge. How's that working? how's it going for you? And I'm always like, it's not working. It's not working at all. But my mind is there to tell me, but we're in charge. We're working this thing out. And my heart is there to tell me, hold on a second. Let's look at this intelligently. Let's really look at how this has worked for us in the past. Has it worked? No. Let's try something else. Let's try leading with what actually works. So my constant practice for this new year and this new month and this whole new everything has been to recognize that my mind's doing its job, trying to make me believe that I'm in charge. But I want to also let my heart do its job, which is to weigh the pros and cons, look at my mind and say, maybe we don't have to listen to you today. Maybe we can try something else that works. And every single time that I have fought the urge to just mindlessly dive into Netflix, and I've made the switch, the conscious effort to go back to these kinds of descriptions, even if it's just a paragraph, even if it's just one page, it has made such a tremendous change for me. It makes me want to keep that in mind always, that this works. That whole struggle with the mind, it will always be there. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, everyone, he doesn't exempt anyone. Everyone in this creation is struggling with the 6 senses. Normally we only have 5, right? He says the 6 senses, which include the mind. The mind is its own entity. And it will remind us of that every single day. Srila Prabhupada's own spiritual teacher, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, would say, you should wake up and immediately beat the mind with a shoe. And then he said, before you go to bed in the evening, you should beat it with a stick. So like in the beginning and the end of his day, he's going to beat the mind back. Which, it always sounds so intense, but really that's how intense and strong our minds are. Our minds are constantly telling us so much. Whether it's, you'll never make it. You'll never succeed. You'll never get to that place. It'll never work. Or it will work, but only for you. And you have to keep whatever you've gotten. Don't share it. Otherwise, if they also have it, then that means less for you. So I find that, especially with my mind, even when it looks like my mind is telling me positive things, It has its own agenda behind it. But my heart, when my heart gets to tell me the positive things, it comes from a completely different place, a completely different understanding. So I've been trying not to listen to the mind so much. And yes, to recondition it, but also to not listen to it so much. Because even when it starts to tell me the positive things, it has its own agenda. So even when it's like, yeah, we could do this surrender thing, try it. Go for surrender, and maybe it'll make you rich. And I'm like, what? Why are you saying that? How did we get here? I thought we were friends. I thought we were supposed to be on the same path. Like the surrender brings the spiritual love that we've been hankering for. It's like, yeah, okay, sure, that, why, whatever, fine. But maybe also you can ask your friend for every kind of abundance that you could ever dream of so that we could have a convertible. And I'm like, we don't need a convertible. Like, why are you telling me this? So even when my mind decides to get on the surrender train, it has its own agenda in the background. So I try to be very careful around this roommate of my mind that lives in the same house that I'm in. And I try to remember, and I said this on a podcast, that, we're living in the same house, but different rooms. And sometimes I'd like to lock the door of that room. Just lock it in there and go on about my day without its constant chattering going on, because it's constantly telling me things with its very own agenda. Right? Sure, do this, but hoard it all. Because if you don't hoard it, what's going to happen to you? I'm like, what? Hoarding is never good. Like, why are we doing why? So let's see, I need these descriptions. I need to know that there's a person with a personality who completely understands what I'm going through, which is why I love Bhagavad Gita, because I feel like Krishna completely understands. Everybody's struggling. This mind thing, everybody is struggling with it. I guarantee you. And that was always so compassionate, so gentle, so hopeful, that there is a supreme person who's saying, I get it. Everybody's struggling. But look, just come over here. I can help you with everything. Just come over to my side. I got you. All we have to do is make that one little step to go over on Krishna's side. Srila Prabhupada continues. The family in which Krishna appeared is called the Yadu dynasty. This Yadu dynasty belongs to the family descending from Soma, the god in the moon planet. There are two different Kshatriya families of the royal order, or warrior families. One descending from the king of the moon planet and the other descending from the king of the sun planet. Whenever the Supreme Personality of Godhead appears, he generally appears in a Kshatriya or warrior family because he has to establish religious principles or the life of the righteous, or the life of righteousness. The Kshatriya family is the protector of the human race, according to the Vedic system. When the Supreme Personality of Godhead appeared as Lord Ramachandra, he appeared in the family descending from the sun god known as the Raghu Vamsha. And when he appeared as Lord Krishna, he did so in the family of the Yadu Vamsa. There is a long list of the kings of the Yadu Vamsa in the 9th canto, 24th chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam. All of them were great, powerful kings. So Krishna has appeared, and seemingly whenever he appears, he does so in the position of a government official. Which, interestingly enough, we don't usually like government officials. But they're necessary. And they've been necessary. So how crazy is it that, all of these things that we think, oh, they're just demoniac, all of these materialistic thinking people. But whenever Krishna decides to descend, he descends into governmental positions because those are the people who are supposed to protect society, even if they're not. And we'll see at the very beginning of this Krishna book that even 5,000 years ago, they were not. So then Krishna takes matters into his own hands. So sometimes we want to acknowledge that not everything is all bad, right? So we have political governments and all these governments and nobody likes them, but not everything is all bad. Maybe not everything is all bad. How do we discern between what's bad and good? Sometimes we can't. Sometimes we just have to literally rely on Krishna to guide us at every moment. And in those decision-making processes of every moment relying on Krishna, I've kind of been reciting the verse Bhagavad Gita chapter 2 text 7. So Bhagavad Gita 2:7, which says, "O Govinda." I mean, he says "O Govinda" before that, but I'm adding that in now. "O Govinda, I'm completely confused. I've lost all composure due to miserly weakness, right? My mind is getting out of control. I'm losing all of it. I have no idea which way to go. I'm completely broken down and confused. In this condition, I am asking, begging you to tell me for certain what's best for me. Now I'm your disciple and a soul surrendered unto you." Every day, at some point, I wind up reciting this particular verse, just as a means of saying, "Hey, friend, help. I don't know where I'm going. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what's best for me. I can't see everything in the long term, but you can. You see everything. Every nook and cranny, every possible pathway. You see everything. So you tell me for certain, not the riddles that you normally speak in, but you tell me for certain what's best for me." And then I usually add on, "And in the meantime, can you help me to be okay with that plan?" Because nothing feels worse than God saying, "Here you go, here's the plan." And then in the meantime, we're like, "How am I supposed to do this? I can't. This is not feeling nice." So I also add in, "Can you help me be okay with that plan? Can you help me feel okay with that plan? Can you help my heart feel a little less achy with that plan? I want to feel safe in your plan." So that's usually my prayer for figuring out which way to go, which way to move, what decisions to make. How do I navigate this big thing called life? Um, I hope that it helps all of you. And I also wind up praying that for loads of people. So if you've asked me for a prayer, please know at some point I have probably prayed this particular prayer for you. Like, help them figure out which way to go. Tell them for certain what's best for them. But also, fortify their hearts in the meantime. Give them the strength and the courage and the love and the compassion and the acceptance and the forgiveness. Give them all the things that they need in the meantime to be okay with your plan. Don't just give them the plan and then leave their hearts stranded, Lord. Uplift those hearts and show them that you're working in their lives. We need it. Show them that you don't incarnate just one time. Show them that you incarnate every single day. In every single life. So, we didn't get that far, but next week we get to journey into Krishna's genealogical family tree. Just a little bit. But I kind of wanted to open it up for questions, comments, anything that you all are thinking of, just so that we really get the chance to hear from one another and have this be a little interactive.
Hare Krishna. Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay, perfect. I have just a reflection on what we were reading. So we were talking about the descriptions of Krishna's realm, and there was the Chintamani stones that the house is made of, and the trees that are all desire trees, and all of this is sounding really good. And then, of course, the very next line, it says that there's hundreds of thousands of goddesses of fortune, and they're all serving. And it was such a wake-up call to me, because sometimes when you think about service in this world, like when you serve somebody, that's not the highest pleasure. And that's when we have to to serve a government, right? Or we have to serve. It's like a duty, it's an obligation, it's something you're dredged into. And like all these things are already painted into my consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's like, we're getting this description, and it's like, and then what are the people doing? They're serving. And it was just like, that's the thing, like touchstones, desire trees, and service. But then it like was that wake up call to be like, okay, like I trust you, Krishna, that you have just described the best of possible circumstances, the most opulent and beautiful thing. And that when it comes to of actions, you know, it's like of buildings were touchstones, of trees were desires, and of actions, it's
Yeah.
service. Like,
Yeah.
okay, like, so that was kind of the thing that stuck out to me about that passage.
Yeah. It's beautiful, isn't it? Because, you know, when you think of the term like, you know, public servant, you're like, oh, it's like, you know, those thankless jobs that nobody really wants. But yeah, here in the divine realm, that's the job everybody wants. This is what this spiritual realm runs on service. And they have all the wealth, they have all the opulence, they have all the trees, they have all the things, they have goddesses of fortune. And you know, it kind of, that reflection made me think about how we pray sometimes, you know. And we do this thing, oh God, just if you gave me $1 million, I would just build you the finest temple because that's what God needs. Mm. It seems a little bit like, you know, the mind gets in there and then tries to justify its ramblings. You know, get the $1 million, tell God you're going to build a temple, right? Because that will satisfy God. No problem. It's fine. God doesn't need that, you know. And of course, yes, the temple should be built, but why? The basis of the temples being built is for us, so that we show like, okay, wait, God's ambassador, right? Now, if anybody had a consulate ambassador, right? You had a consulate and you have the embassy and you have an ambassador, and then you go to the office of the embassy, which is usually some big fancy office building, right? Whenever you have to go get a visa or something, I had to go to the embassy, you know, it's like if you went and it was the most dilapidated building, it was like falling down and it's like holes in the roof and nothing was working right. I think we'd probably like, I don't think this is the right building. And I'm not going to this shady establishment. Like, I'm going to go find a real establishment to go give my documents to. So, yes, these temples are like these consulate embassies to the spiritual world. They should be fancy. This is what we should be putting our energy into. But also, they're for us. They're for us to get visas, right? This is a place for us to present our documents or get that fortification to get that spiritual visa. They're for us to come together and build up one another. So yes, absolutely. But it really did make me think. It's like, oh God, I'll give you $1 million. It's like I gave you the $1 million, and now you're gonna give me $250,000. Like I already gave you. What makes you think that I need it's like when you have kids and they give you a Mother's Day present or a Father's Day present, but it's just kind of like, can I have $5? And they go and they get you a tie. And you're like, oh, it's fine. Or they go and they make you the thing. It's like, oh, it's sweet. And you gave them all the stuff that they needed to make you this thing. But it's about the love and the service that they put into it. The fact that they just wanted to make you happy. That's the position that we're in. We have nothing on our own. Srila Prabhupada would say we're all like zeros. Add Krishna and Krishna becomes the one, and it is infinitely more abundant than we could ever have dreamt of. But what does Krishna want? Krishna wants that eagerness and that sincerity and that feeling of, but I just wanted to make you happy. And I wanted to make you happy, and I just wanted to tell other people about you because you've made me so happy somehow. And somehow spreading that makes you happy. Just telling other people makes you incredibly happy. Not hoarding the information for ourselves makes Krishna happy. So yeah, that's such a wonderful realization that yeah, like being a public servant now is the goal.
I love
It's the
that
best thing.
example. I love that example you just gave about the kids, because it's like, not only do they use our energy to give us the gift, but then they also leave the mess for us to clean up after they've made the project, right? And that's what Krishna, like, that's what we do. Like.
Yeah. Yeah. It's exactly right. So yeah, we also have as a dear friend, and he asked me a question. And I kind of, if you would be so kind, David, to ask that question, but like for everybody so that I don't paraphrase it wrong.
The question that I sent you?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So, so my question was, um, as I'm going down the path of Krishna consciousness and love of God and devotion to Krishna, I spent 49 years with no relationship. So learning what that relationship is the place that I'm in now. So my question was, we understand the process, or we learn about the process of meditation, japa, kirtan, spiritual learning, reading, and spiritual community. But I would love to hear you describe, without putting you on the spot, what the feeling, or describe the feeling of the love that you have for Krishna, um, and how that really resonates with you. Because again, it's one thing to hear the processes, but I don't often hear how people describe what that feeling for them is like. So I would love to hear that.
So just before I start, I heard a really just interesting short story from Sachinandan Swami. If you don't know Sachinandan Swami, he is one of the most incredible people to know. I encourage all of us to just kind of like look him up on YouTube, find him. He's like the nicest German man. And you don't always think about the language of German as being like this sweet sounding thing. Like, nobody, it's like when you think of like sweet languages or romance languages, right? Like they call them romance languages because they just, woo. And German is not included in there. And once Srila Prabhupada described German as sounding like barking dogs. And but Sachinandan Swami is so different somehow. And when he speaks, because he speaks in English, but his accent is just so pleasant. Like it really, you know, there's no there. Every time I hear him, there's literally no other way for me to describe it other than I love him so much. I can't. I love it. And so he told a really, really the briefest story ever. He said, Srila Prabhupada asked one day, how do we know Krishna is God? And the people he was with, they said, well, because, Srimad Bhagavatam says so, all these things. Okay, but Shastra can say so many things. How do you know he's God? And they said, well, because you've said so. He says, I could say so many things. Today I may say something, tomorrow I may say something else you don't agree with. I could say so many things. How do we know? And he was saying when we are in kirtan, when we are actively diving into the process of this bhakti yoga, and when we start to feel that reciprocation, when we start to become aware of the way in which like God's working in our lives, when we really dive in and let the process do its work and allow ourselves to go with the flow of that grace as it comes up, that's how we know that Krishna is God. And I really liked that answer because it was based on us trying it. So yeah, the process is a lot like what I dislike about science is they will tell you theoretically what is happening, but never the why. And even if they tell you a why, it's not the why that satisfies my heart. Right? It's like, oh, when somebody says, why is the sky blue? And then they say, oh, well, there's a reaction, and then the reflection, and then the water and the sky and all this stuff. I'm like, no, 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 no. But why that color? Like, why this blue? And then at sunset, it's a different blue. And when it rains, it's a different, why blue? Like, oh, well, your eye can see this and your eye's going to see that depending upon how much light is reflect. But no, no, no. But why? And that gets down to a much more creative answer, right? This creative genius, this inspiration, which is not in the realm of science. This is in the realm of spiritual science, in the realm of devotion. So sometimes I feel like spiritual science is also a lot like that. You know, what's the deal with this meditation? Well, you sit with your back this way, you breathe this way, you chant this thing, and then it's like, no, 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 but what is it? What's behind that? So all of these mantras and things, especially for me, kirtan, japa, as the years have gone on, writing. Okay, look, life. As we call upon this supreme person, no matter what name you've decided to use or not, when we call on this supreme person, there has been an active reciprocation. That for me has been everything. That feeling of reciprocation. When I was young, about 14 or 15 or 16, I wanted to sing a lot, and I was not a good singer at all. And I wanted to be like a pop star, and that was never going to happen. And it's about the same time that I started singing kirtan. And then inexplicably, all these things start to happen. And make no mistake about it, I don't think I was ever meant to be a pop star. But kirtan is different. Kirtan, we harness an experience much greater than ourselves. Krishna is so full. We hear about all these opulences that he has: knowledge, beauty, renunciation, wealth, power, all these opulences. But when we enter into those kirtans, we now harness that. When Krishna says everything is but a spark of my splendor, he really, really means it. And when we see that spark show up, that's what we then identify as, oh my God, that person, they preach and they're just so amazing. That person, they speak or they sing, and oh my goodness, like, I felt that, but it's not me. What you are feeling is that reciprocation with Krishna. And so getting real with myself and saying, look, to be honest, this is not me. And really acknowledging that what people are connecting with is actually Krishna. Really, truly Krishna. In all of his magnificence. That is what inspires the love for me. It's what keeps me going, especially when I'm completely confused and I have no idea why I keep going. It reminds me that all of the best things in my life have happened in my connection with Krishna. It reminds me that there's a Grammy nomination. I'm like one little person. There's a Grammy nomination, but that's because Krishna. I have a book that won an award, but that's because Krishna. Because it's a book of poetry. And when I was in college studying poetry, my professors told me, maybe you shouldn't write poetry. There is no possible reason why all of these things that I wasn't even that good at should now garner all of this. That's Krishna. So, and it's not just like, oh, all these things have happened. And so, yeah, there's a feeling of love of Krishna because Krishna reciprocated with great abundant things. No, actually, most of these realizations came in the hard times, in the dark, when the tunnel seems like I'm kind of just feeling my way down this tunnel and I have no idea where I'm going. And Lord, I need you to fix this because I'm not going to make it. That's normally where that real deep reciprocation starts to come in. I used to go to a Woodstock festival before COVID shut the world down effectively. And at this Woodstock festival, there'd be 200,000 people there in Europe, in Poland, and they'd all come together. And a lot of them were in different levels of intoxication with like various different intoxicants. And they were young people, like 18 to 25. Some of them were like a small bit were older, but 18 to 25. And they'd all come together. And Indrajimna Maharaj used to have a mantra yoga tent where they do 6-7 hours of just kirtan. And we would sit in that tent and we would sing and we would do kirtan. And I would watch the tent fill up and I would watch the way people would dance and sing this thing that they'd never heard before, ever, for hours. And we would stop and it would be 3 a.m. for them. And they'd keep on singing and they'd sit in the tent and they'd just wait again for the next time we would start up again. 3 a.m, these people are there. If that wasn't enough, the lineup always made me think, this is Krishna. Because you have these people and some of them are these like 60 to 70-year-old white dudes. There's no reason that they should be considered cool by these 18 to 25-year-olds. They've got like reggae coming from one side and bass rock coming from another side. And there's all this stuff. And then there's us with kirtan. And all of these people, there's people for as far as you can see. And they're all singing for hours. And you've got people like Badahari. And I'm like, Badahari is one of the most chill, laid back people I know. I think he's cool, but that's because I know him. But to be honest, he's like somebody's older uncle. Like there's no reason people come to a rock concert to see chill, laid back Badahari. Right? But all of these people came and they'd come year after year and they'd come and they'd tell us, this changed my whole life. That's Krishna. Because there's no logical reason why all of these people who could be hearing, like there's like rap stars over there and there's like, I'm telling you, there would be a lineup of actual famous people. They'd leave those concerts to come to the mantra yoga tent and chant Hare Krishna with all of us for 6, 7, 8 hours. So those are the moments where I feel like I really start to see how Krishna works. And it's inconceivable. And I can never tell where he's going to sprinkle some of his magic next, but I feel like I always want to be on the lookout for it. All the things that shouldn't make sense, and then they all line up, and somehow they become the biggest celebration I've ever seen in my life. These things keep me going, despite the obstacles and the hardships and the hurdles and the days when I feel like this is way too much trouble. It is so much trouble rearranging my life and having a spiritual practice and all this being held accountable and all this responsibility and all this consciousness, all this stuff. Like it's so much trouble. Why am I doing this? The reciprocation keeps me coming back. So I know that was really long-winded, but I do hope it answered your question.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for addressing it. I appreciate it.
Oh, it's my absolute pleasure. And I feel like keep diving in. And we'll be able to experience it together. We'll all look at it and we'll see how Krishna reciprocates, and we'll just see how he shows up. And what I really love is that he kind of never shows up the same way twice. So how God shows up for me might show up for you differently, but it'll always be amazing.
I think how he showed up for me very recently was since I'd seen you in New York. I believe it was at the festival back in June. I believe you were there. Mm-hmm. And I was with the Wisdom of the Sages retreat. And anyway, so since that moment, I had been searching for regular kirtan, and I had asked the Bhakti Center if they would do the Thursday night on Zoom or anyway, where I grew up in Hollywood, I'm in South Florida, 3 months ago, and I just found it 2 weeks ago, a temple popped up with regular kirtan. So that's how he's showing up for me now.
Absolutely. And how beautiful is that? You know, it's like we think, oh, all I did was just like ask for something. But we were talking about that before. Like all I can do is just ask my best friend, like, hey, best friend, I think I need more of blank in my life. And when the best friend says, sure, like always, it's in like the best, biggest way possible. And it's always really, really awesome. So absolutely, those are those moments. These are the moments that will keep us going. And when times get hard, because they always do, somehow or other, they always find a way of getting difficult. But when they do, I hope that you cling to those moments. That no, no, no. Even if it seems like it's hard right now, it doesn't matter what I'm going through, what I've gone through, where I've been, or where I'm going. This supreme person is actually here for me. And I feel like that's what I tend to forget. When times are hard, I'm like, oh, it's just abandonment. I'm alone and life stinks. But I try to journal and come back to those little moments of miracles when I can remember, okay, look, my best friend has never left me before. They're not going to leave me now. Even though it seems like I have abandoned my own self, my best friend's not going to leave me. Thank you so much for sharing that. Okay. Anybody else? One more thing. Anything else? And then I'm gonna let you all go. Free you. Nobody? So speak now or forever hold your peace. Then okay, fine. Um, I kind of feel like me and my sister. You ever go to like a Catholic service, and the line is like, "May God be with you, and also with you." I really do feel like my sister and I we've kind of like adopted that with each other. It's like, "May Govinda be with you, and also with you." Like sometimes you need a reminder. So praying that Govinda's with you in all of your days and in this coming week. We'll be back here next Sunday, same time, same place. Hoping to see all of you. Please bring a friend. Um, let it transform their lives, and we'll see what other miracles have popped up for us along the way. I'll be sure to bring something in for all of you next session for see through show and tell. Um, we'll show miracles to one another. And until then, thank you so much. Can't wait to be with all of you again.
Thank you.
Saying Jai Radha Govinda and Hare Krishna to everybody. Thank you.
Love you.
Love
See
you all
soon.
so much.